Have you ever noticed that there's a generation that simply doesn't complain? In a world that's become a 24/7 reality show of performative trauma and constant cries for attention, there's a demographic that remains eerily silent. They aren't posting manifestos on TikTok or waiting for a participation trophy from society. They're just working. Your pathological need to handle every crisis alone without ever calling for backup isn't just a personality trait. It's a survival mechanism of a child who learned far too early that no one was coming to help. While the rest of the world is obsessed with the digital fragility of Gen Z or the nostalgic comfort of boomers, there's a generation standing in the shadows that psychologists are only now beginning to understand. If you were born between 1965 and 1980, you are the subject of a massive, unplanned social experiment. You are the Latchkey Kids, the ones who survived without a digital tether, without a safety net, and without an audience. Your hyper-independence is a neurobiological imprint from a version of reality that has been permanently deleted. Today, we are dissecting the iron-clad psychology of Generation X. We are going to explore why your brain works like a survival algorithm, why you have a built-in BS detector that never fails, and why your unique brand of quiet realism is the only thing keeping the modern world from falling apart. Let's go back to a Tuesday afternoon in 1978 or 1983. You're 9 years old. You walk home from school alone, the silence of the neighborhood echoing in your ears. You reach into your pocket or look at the string around your neck to find a piece of cold metal, your house key. You let yourself into a silent house. Your parents are working. There is no smartphone to text them, no cameras to check on you, and no social media to fill the void. Just you, the hum of the refrigerator, and the ticking of a clock. To a modern observer, this looks like a crisis. To a child of Gen X, this was simply Tuesday. But what did that silence do to your developing brain? Psychologists call this a high-contingency learning environment. When you're alone, every action has an immediate consequence. If you forgot your key, you sat on the porch. If you were hungry, you learned to use a stove. You didn't have a safety officer protecting you from boredom. This forced your brain into a state of radical autonomy. You developed an internal locus of control at an age when today's children are still being supervised on playgrounds. Because no one was coming to save you, you learned that you were the only one who could. As an adult, your first instinct in a crisis isn't to call for help. It's to put your head down and solve the problem yourself. You weren't home alone. You were in a neurobiological training camp for self-reliance. Take a moment and look at your hands. Those hands remember the tactile resistance of a rotary dial and the scent of a physical map unfolding in a car. While other generations were fed stories of infinite progress, Gen X was raised in the shadow of institutional decay. You watched the divorce rates of your parents skyrocket, turning family into a variable instead of a constant. You saw the one thing that was supposed to be stable fracture in real time. It didn't stop there. You saw the duck and cover drills in school, where teachers told you a wooden desk would protect you from a nuclear blast. You knew it was a lie. You watched the Challenger explosion live in your classroom and saw the heroes fall. You watched the massive corporate layoffs of the 90s, realizing that the loyalty your parents talked about was a one-way street. This created a state known as protective skepticism. You didn't become cynical out of spite, you became cynical as a defense mechanism. This is why you don't care about corporate mission statements or office culture. You have a built-in sensor for incompetence that borders on a sixth sense. You've seen the rug pulled out so many times that you've learned to always keep one foot on solid ground. In the workplace, you respect competence and nothing else. You don't care about the title on a door. You care about whether they actually know how to do the job when the system crashes at 4 in the morning. You are a unique biological anomaly. You are the last people on Earth who remember life before the internet. You are the bridge generation. You spent your formative years in an analog world where finding a fact meant traveling to a library and searching through card catalogs. Neuroscientists tell us that this effort-based acquisition creates deeper, more permanent neural pathways. Your knowledge wasn't Googled, it was mined. Then, in your early 20s, the digital world exploded. You didn't just adapt to the internet, you built the infrastructure it runs on. This made you cognitively bilingual. You can navigate a complex software interface, but you also remember how to navigate a city with a paper map. You understand the why behind the how. You remember what it felt like to be truly unreachable. You remember the mental peace that exists when no one can track your location. Younger generations suffer from ambient anxiety because they've never known a world without a notification. You, however, have a mental safe house. You know you can survive without Wi-Fi. You know reality is what's happening in front of you, not on a screen. You aren't a slave to the algorithm because you remember the world before the algorithm existed. Beyond technology, there's the factor of psychological endurance. Gen X was raised on the power of boredom. Today, boredom is a problem to be solved with an app. But for you, boredom was a forge of creativity. When you had nothing to do, your brain was forced to invent games, build things, and live inside your own head. This created a generation that doesn't need constant external stimulation to feel alive. You have an internal world that is more stable than the digital noise outside. However, this independence has a cost. Research shows that Gen Xers report the lowest levels of seeking support during stress, not because you don't have friends, but because asking for help feels like admitting defeat. You've been handling everything since you were 8, so why stop now? This self-reliance borders on exhaustion, creating a generation that is incredibly capable in a crisis, but often tired from the weight of carrying everything alone. You have become experts at masking your struggles, believing that to show a crack in your armor is to fail the child you once were, the one who had to be strong because there was no other choice. Now, let's look at the great psychological irony of Generation X. Because you grew up as the invisible children, you vowed your own children would never feel that silence. You became the architects of the most supervised, protected childhood in human history. As you look at your children today, a part of you feels a quiet conflict. You love them, but you are baffled by their lack of grit. You watch them struggle with a slow connection or a minor social slight, and you suppress the urge to tell them about the time you walked miles in the rain because you missed the bus and had no phone. You've spent 20 years protecting your children from the very friction that made you strong. By removing the key from their neck, you might have removed their ability to trust themselves. You are a generation of lions trying to raise kittens, and that realization is a heavy burden. You value self-reliance above all else, yet you've built a world for your children where self-reliance is almost impossible to practice. You worry that in your quest to provide what you lacked, you have taken away the experience of overcoming something on their own. There is also the economic scarring you carry. Gen X has been economically punched in the face more times than any other living group. You entered the workforce during recessions and were hitting your stride when the dot-com bubble burst. You were in your prime earning years when the 2008 crisis wiped out trillions in home equity. This created chronic self-reliance. While others rely on systems or pensions, Gen X has a side hustle mentality born out of necessity. You don't trust the system to take care of you. You are the generation of the backup plan, the ones who always have an exit strategy because you know that loyalty is a fairy tale. You live with a low-level anticipation of the next collapse, which makes you efficient in a crisis, but prevents you from ever truly relaxing. You are the silent operators who keep the lights on when the visionaries run out of funding. Generation X doesn't need this video. You aren't looking for a viral trend to tell you that your life matters. The world is entering a period of unprecedented fragility, and your quiet realism is becoming a vital resource. You are the ones who know how to work without an audience. You can handle a crisis without a breakdown on social media. Your psychology was forged in the dark and the silence of the 20th century. You've been economically traumatized and socially ignored, and it has only made you more dangerous. A person who doesn't need validation is a person who cannot be controlled. You are the last of the realists. You are the bridge in the invisible spine of a world that is too loud for its own good. If this hit home, it's because you recognize the truth. You weren't lost. You were just waiting for everyone else to catch up. You don't need the spotlight, but it's time the world understood the cost of your silence. If you value these deep psychological dives, join us. Subscribe to The Last Realists. We don't do motivation, we do reality. Welcome home. We'll see you in the next one.